Hello everyone. Welcome to the AWS Certified AI Practitioner Bootcamp Practice Test Set 4. This video is part of the AI Practitioner Certification Bootcamp series. On behalf of the Cloud Expert Solutions team, I would like to thank you for joining us and exploring this video. In this session, you will test your understanding of everything we have covered so far, from generative AI concepts, model tuning, explainability, to AWS Bedrock and AI security. If you haven't already checked out all the previous modules in this bootcamp series, then we would like to request you to do so. Each video builds your foundation step by step, so you will be fully prepared for the AI Practitioner Certification exam. Take your time, note down your answers, and use these as final checkpoints to measure your readiness. Let's dive in and see how exam ready you really are. We'll start with question number 1. A car manufacturer company wants to use generative AI to create product descriptions for its website. What is the limitation of Gen AI that the organization should be aware of? This question is asking for Gen AI limitations. So let's review the options one by one. The first option, Gen AI cannot handle the large volumes of data that is required for product description. Gen AI models are specifically designed to process and learn from massive datasets during training. Handling large volumes of data is a strength, not a limitation of Gen AI. That is why this option is not correct. Let's review the next option. Gen AI cannot generate text in the multiple languages that is required for the car manufacturer's website. Most modern Gen AI applications like GPT-based systems support multilingual text generations. While quality may vary language by language, the capability exists and it is widely used. That is why this option is not correct. Now let's review the third option. Gen AI models lack the ability to understand and incorporate product specifications and details. Gen AI can incorporate structured product details if provided in the prompt. The limitation is not inability, but rather dependency on accurate input and context. That is why option 3 is also not correct. Our final option, Gen AI models might produce biased or inappropriate content that requires human review and editing. This is correct because Gen AI models can inadvertently generate biased, offensive, or even factually incorrect content. Human oversight is essential to ensure quality and appropriateness before publishing. That is why option number 4 is correct option for this question. Let's move to question number 2. The question number 2 is saying, a media company runs its production workload using Amazon EC2 and Amazon Elastic Container Service or ECS in AWS. The company must implement a solution to assess its AWS environment security posture. The solution must identify potential security vulnerabilities across Amazon EC2 instances and Amazon Elastic Container Registry or Amazon ECR. The solution should provide recommendations for remediation. Which AWS service will meet this requirement? This question has a very big description and this description is just to make you diverted. The only thing it is asking, which AWS security service can scan Amazon ECR or Elastic Container Registry and Amazon EC2 for vulnerabilities. Now let's review the options one by one. To start with, AWS CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail records API calls and user activity for auditing and compliance. AWS CloudTrail does not have vulnerability scanning capability. It helps track changes but does not assess security postures or provide remediation advices. That is why AWS CloudTrail is not the correct option. The second option, AWS Config. AWS Config monitors resource configurations for compliance and detect configuration drift, but it does not perform vulnerability assessment on EC2 or ECR. That is why AWS config is not the correct option. The third option, Amazon Inspector. Amazon Inspector is a security assessment service that automatically scans EC2 instances and container images in Amazon ECR for vulnerabilities and deviation from best practices. Amazon Inspector also provides detailed remediation recommendations. That is why this is the ideal solution for our use case. But let's park it and review the last option. The last option is AWS Artifact. AWS Artifact provides access to compliance reports and agreements. It's not an active security assessment tool. It is useful for documentation but does not identify vulnerabilities or it does not suggest any fix. That is why AWS Artifact is also not the correct option. That makes Amazon Inspector is the correct option for this question. Now let's review question number 3. Question number 3 is saying, a retail company hired you as AI engineer. The CIO wanted to understand the concept of foundation model from you. What is a foundation model in the context of generative AI? This is a simple copybook question and it is asking what is foundation model in context of generative AI. Now let's review the options one by one. The first option, foundation model is a task-specific model that is trained on a narrow domain such as finance or legal to serve a foundation in that area. This describes a domain-specific model, not a foundation model. Foundation models are general purpose and not limited to a single domain. That is why this is not a correct option. Let's move to option number 2. Foundation model is a large general purpose model that is pre-trained on diverse dataset that can be fine-tuned for downstream tasks. Because foundation models are large-scale models trained on broad and diverse dataset which enable them to serve as a base for multiple applications. They can be adapted or fine-tuned for specific tasks like text generation, image recognition, or even domain-specific use cases. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the remaining two options. Option number 3, foundation model is a theoretical framework to understand how different types of models learn representations. This refers to a conceptual or academic framework, not an actual model. Foundation models are practical, deployable models, not just a theory. That is why option number 3 is not correct. Moving to our last option, foundation model is a basic architecture that serves as starting point to design more complex neural network. This sounds like a neural network architecture. It's not a foundation model because foundation models are fully trained model, not just architectural blueprint. That is why option 4 is not correct, which makes option number 2 is the correct option for this question. Now let's move to question number 4. Question number 4 is saying a law firm wants to expedite legal documentations using generative AI. The organization wants to utilize a large language model or LLM to automate document processing. The firm must proceed responsibly to avoid potential harms. What responsible AI practice the firm should use when developing and deploying the LLM? And we have to select two options. Let's review the options one by one. To start with, implement fairness metrics to evaluate the model. Fairness metrics helps identify and reduce bias in model predictions, which will ensure equitable treatment across different demographic groups. This is a core principle of responsible AI. So this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the other options. Option number 2, adjust the temperature parameter of the model. Temperature controls randomness in output generation, not fairness or bias. Temperature affects creativity, not ethical or responsible AI practice. That is why option number 2 is not correct. Let's move on. Option number 3, augment the training data to mitigate the model's bias. Data augmentation can balance representation in the training set, which will reduce bias and improve fairness. This proactive step addresses bias at the source or at the data source. Hence, this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the remaining two. Option number 4, avoid overfitting while training the ML model. While avoiding overfitting is a good generalization, it is a standard machine learning practice, not specifically a responsible AI principle which is related to fairness or harm mitigation. That is why option number D is also not correct. And our last option, use prompt engineering techniques while generating output. Prompt engineering improves output quality but does not inherently addresses bias, fairness or ethical concerns. It is a usability technique, not a responsible AI safeguard. That is why option number 5 is also incorrect. That leads to option number 1 and 3 is the correct option for this question. Let's move to question number 5. An online education institution wants to develop an educational game where users answer questions such as the following. What is the probability of drawing a king from a deck of cards? Which solution meets this requirement with the least operational overhead? This question is asking what are the anti-patterns of machine learning. Let's review the options. Option number 1 used unsupervised learning to create a regression model that will predict the probability. Supervised learning requires labeled data and it is designed for prediction tasks, not for computing fixed probabilities which can be calculated based on rules. This option will add unnecessary complexity and overhead. That is why option number 1 is not correct. The next option, use reinforcement learning to train a model to return probability. Reinforcement learning is for sequential decision making and optimizing actions through rewards. This is not for static probability calculation. This option will be highly inefficient for this use case. That is why this is not a correct option. Option number 3, use unsupervised learning to create a model that will estimate probability density. Unsupervised learning is not for calculating probabilities from well-defined scenarios like card draws and others. That is why this approach does not provide a least operational overhead solution. Hence, this is not correct. The final option, write a Java code that will calculate probability by using probability rules and computation. Calculating probabilities like drawing a king from a deck of cards is deterministic mathematical task. Writing a simple program is the least possible option and probability calculation is the machine learning anti-pattern. Whenever you will see some questions in the certification, feel free to choose anything which is written a Java code, C++ code or the option with no machine learning involved. This makes option number 4 is the right option. Now let's move to question number 6. A machine learning engineer is training a foundation model and needs to improve its accuracy to meet a specific acceptance level. Which of the following strategies is most likely to achieve this goal with the least operational overhead? Now let's review the options. Decrease the batch size. Smaller batch size can sometimes help generalization but typically increase training time and computational overhead. It does not guarantee improved accuracy. For this type of problem, you should increase epoch. That is why this is not the correct option. Next option, increase the epoch. Increasing the number of epochs allows the model to train longer, giving it more opportunities to learn patterns from data. This technique often improves accuracy up to a point before overfitting can become a concern. So here the catch is, if you are increasing the epoch more than up to certain point, your model might see overfitting. But for our case, this seems the right option. So let's park it and review the other options. The third option is decrease the epoch. Reducing epoch shortens training, which usually lowers accuracy because the model has fewer chances to learn from the data. Increasing epochs will improve learning, and decreasing epoch will do the opposite thing. That is why this is not the correct option for us. The last option, increase the temperature parameter. Temperature affect randomness in text generation. That is nothing to do with training accuracy. It is relevant for inference, not for improving model performance. That is why option number 4 is also not correct, and that makes option number 2 is the correct option for this question. Let's review question number 7. A retail company is trying to improve customer support by deploying a conversational chatbot fine-tuned using Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart to handle customer inquiries. The application must adhere to multiple regulatory frameworks. Which capability of Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart can assist the organization in demonstrating compliance with this regulation? And we have to select two options. Now let's review the options one by one. First, auto-scaling inference endpoint. Auto-scaling improve performance and cost efficiency, but that does not address compliance or regulatory requirements. That is why option number 1 is not correct. Next, threat detection. SageMaker Jumpstart integrates with AWS Security Services to help detect potential threats and vulnerabilities in machine learning workflows. This option will support compliance by ensuring the environment is monitored for security risk. That is why this seems a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the next option. The third option is data protection. Jumpstart provides capability for encryption of data at rest and in transit. Encryption supports secure access control. This feature is again a potential correct option, so let's park it and review the remaining two. The fourth option, cost optimization. Cost optimization will help manage expenses but has no direct link to regulatory compliance. That is why cost optimization is not the correct option. And the last option, loosely coupled microservices. Loosely coupled microservices can improve flexibility and scalability, but it does not inherently provide compliance capability, and that is why loosely coupled microservice is also not the correct option. And that makes option number 2 and 3 is the correct option for question number 7. Let's review question number 8. A medical service provider is developing a diagnostic tool using a foundation model. To comply with HIPAA regulatory guidelines, the organization requires the model to be transparent and its prediction to be readily explainable. Which of the following approaches is most suitable for meeting these requirements? Now let's review the options. Option number 1, use Amazon Inspector to configure security and compliance to meet regulatory requirement. Amazon Inspector can focus on vulnerability scanning for EC2 and container workloads. That is not for model explainability or transparency. That makes option number 1 as incorrect. Let's review the option number 2. Generate simple metrics, reports and examples by using SageMaker Clarify. That is a potential correct option because SageMaker Clarify provides explainability tools for machine learning models. It includes feature attribution, bias detection and transparency reports, and this capability will help meet HIPAA regulatory requirements by making the prediction interpretable and ensuring fairness. So let's park this option. This is potentially correct. Let's review the option number 3. Encrypt and secure training data by using Amazon Messi to ensure data privacy. Messi is a data security service for discovering and protecting sensitive data in Amazon S3. Messi does not have any capability to provide explainability what the question is looking for. That is why option number 3 is not the correct. And our last option, gather more data, use Amazon recognition to add custom labels to the data to improve model accuracy. Recognition is for image and video analysis, not for explainability. Adding labels may improve accuracy, but it does not fulfill transparency or interpretability requirements. That is why option number 4 is not the correct option. Let's review question number 9. An online retail organization wants to deploy an LLM powered chatbot to enhance their customer service operation. The organization wants to quickly deploy and consume a foundation model within their existing Amazon Virtual Private Cloud or VPC. Which AWS service or feature offers the most streamlined approach for achieving this goal? Let's review the options. Amazon Personalize. Amazon Personalize is designed for recommendation systems, not for deploying or fine-tuning foundation models or LLMs. That is why Personalize is not the correct option. Option 2. Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart. SageMaker Jumpstart provides pre-trained foundation model that can be quickly deployed and fine-tuned within your VPC. This seems a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the other options. Option number 3, PartyRock, an Amazon Bedrock playground. PartyRock is a sandbox for experimenting with generative AI applications, not for production deployment within your VPC. That is why PartyRock is not the potential correct option. The last option, Amazon SageMaker Endpoints. While SageMaker endpoints allow hosting models, but they require you to manage training and deployment manually. Jumpstart will accelerate the deployment with pre-trained model, whereas endpoint will require more manual setup. That is why option number 4 is not the optimal option for this question. Let's move to question number 10. A company is utilizing the generative AI security scoping metrics to evaluate security responsibilities for its AI solution. They have identified 4 solution scopes. Which of these scopes would grant the company the greatest level of ownership regarding security responsibilities? Let's review the options. Option number 1, using a third-party enterprise application that has embedded generative AI features. In this scenario, most security responsibility will lie with the third-party provider and the company will have minimal control like user access and data handling. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 2, building an application by using existing third-party generative AI foundation model. While the company manages application level security, the underlying model security and compliance remain the responsibility of the third-party provider. That is why this is also not the correct option because the company is looking for the greatest level of ownership. Option number 3, refining an existing third-party generative AI foundation model by fine-tuning the model by using data specific to the business. Fine-tuning will increase responsibilities for data handling and model outputs, but core model security and architecture will still belong to the provider. That is why this is also not the correct option. And our final option is building and training a generative AI model from scratch by using specific data that a customer owns. When you will build and train your own foundation model from scratch, you will assume full responsibilities for all aspects of security from data protection, model integrity, compliance, and operational control. And this option will provide greatest level of ownership in terms of security responsibilities. That is why this is the correct option. Now let's move to question number 11. A financial institution wants to analyze customer sentiment from text-based feedback. The organization is exploring the use of Amazon Bedrock for this use case. To ensure regulatory compliance and security needs, the company wants to track all API calls made to Amazon Bedrock, including the request time, user's identity, and the specific Bedrock model being accessed. Which AWS service is most suitable for achieving this comprehensive audit trail? Let's review the options. Option number 1, AWS Audit Manager. AWS Audit Manager helps automate evidence collection for compliance audit, but does not log API calls or provide real-time tracking. That is why Audit Manager is not the correct option. Option number 2, AWS Trusted Advisor. Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations for cost optimization, security, and performance, but it does not record API calls. That is why AWS Trusted Advisor is also not the correct option. Option number 3, Amazon Guard Duty. Guard Duty is a threat detection service that analyzes logs for suspicious activities. It's not a tool for detailed API call tracking. That is why Guard Duty is also not the correct option. And last option, AWS CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail provides a comprehensive audit trail of all API calls made to AWS services, including Amazon Bedrock. It captures details such as request time, user's identity, and the specific resource or model the user is accessing. That is why AWS CloudTrail is the correct option. Now let's move to question number 12. A financial broker faces numerous challenges in terms of operational security, generating marketing content, struggling to improve database performance, and analyzing historical data to provide recommendations to their customers. The institution wants to utilize generative AI to address these challenges as much as possible. Which of the following scenarios best exemplifies a practical application of generative AI? The big description in this question may be to divert you. The main point is on the last sentence, and it is asking what are the use cases or what use case can be resolved with generative AI. Now let's review the options. Option number 1, employing intrusion detection system to bolster network security. Intrusion detection system relies on anomaly detection and rule-based systems, not on generative AI. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 2, generating photorealistic images from textual description for marketing content. This is a direct and practical application of generative AI, which excels at creating new content such as image, text, or audio from prompt. That is why this seems a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the other options. Option number 3, optimizing database indexing to improve overall database performance. Database optimization involves query tuning and indexing strategies which are not related to generative AI capabilities. This is more of a DBA capability. That is why this is also not the correct option. Option number 4, analyzing historical financial data to predict stock market trends. Predictive analytics for financial trends using traditional machine learning or statistical models. This is not the use case for generative AI. Hence, this is also not the correct option. Let's move to question number 13. An online retail organization deployed an LLM-powered chatbot in Amazon Bedrock to enhance their customer service operation. The content generated from the chatbot was generic and missing the information relevant to the organization. To improve the chatbot's response and make them more relevant to the company's specific product and services, the company decided to fine-tune the foundation model with their own internal customer data. Which of the following strategies will enable successful fine-tuning of the model in Amazon Bedrock? We have to select two options. This is a very tricky question. Let's review the options. Option number 1, provide label data with the prompt field and the completion field. Fine-tuning in Amazon Bedrock requires a supervised format where each training example includes a prompt, which is input, and completion, that means the desired output. So this seems a potential correct option. Let's park it. Let's review the second option. Train the model on journals and textbooks. Using generic journals and textbook won't make the response relevant to the company's product and service. Fine-tune will require domain-specific internal data. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 3, purchase provision throughput for Amazon Bedrock. Please remember, to deploy that model in production, you need provision throughput because provision throughput generates consistent inference. However, it does not affect fine-tuning. So for fine-tuning a model, purchasing provision throughput is optional and it is not mandatory. However, we found many students do this mistake, and for this type of questions they select purchase provision throughput as the correct option. But as I mentioned, purchasing provision throughput is not mandatory while fine tuning, and the company wanted to fine tune. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 4, prepare the training dataset in JSON lines or JSON-L format. This is correct because Bedrock expects fine-tuning database in JSON-L format where each line will represent a single training data, and this will ensure compatibility with Bedrock's fine-tuning pipeline. That is why JSON-L format is also potentially correct. And the last option, prepare the training dataset by creating a .txt file that contains multiple lines in .csv format. Bedrock does not accept .txt or .csv format for fine-tuning. It only accepts JSON-L format. That is why option number 5 is also not correct. If you have enjoyed this module so far, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to our channel. We regularly share premium cloud courses and certification bootcamps designed to help you succeed. Many learners say our content are best and surpasses paid courses, even paid Udemy courses. You can see their feedback in comments throughout the series. Interestingly, about 85% of our viewers join our bootcamp without subscribing. If that's you, we would truly appreciate your support. By subscribing and sharing this video, you help make high quality cloud education more accessible and affordable for everyone. On behalf of Cloud Expert Solution team, I truly appreciate all your support. Let's resume. Now let's review question number 14. An online retail organization deployed its production workload using containers in AWS Cloud. The organization has recently faced a volumetric attack on its workload. The company wants to use AI to protect its application from threats. The AI solution needs to check if an IP address is from a suspicious source. Which solution meets this requirement? The interesting fact in this question, the question started with containers in AWS, and the question is asking which solution can help you to detect an IP address which is coming from suspicious source. Now let's review the options. Option number 1, build a speech recognition system. Speech recognition converts spoken language into text, and it is unrelated to detecting suspicious IP. Hence, this is not correct. Option number 2, create a natural language processing or NLP named entity recognition system. Named entity recognition identifies entities like names or locations in a text that does not detect anomalies in network traffic or suspicious IP addresses. That is why option number 2 is not correct. Option number 3, develop an anomaly detection system. Anomaly detection is an AI technique which is used to identify unusual patterns or behaviors such as suspicious IP address during a volumetric attack, and this approach will help you detect potential threats. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the last option. Create a fraud forecasting system. A fraud forecasting system will predict fraudulent transactions typically in a financial context, but it has nothing to do with IP address or suspicious IP address detection. That is why option number 4 is also not the correct option. Let's move to question number 15. A Fortune 50 organization sets its organizational goal to reduce its carbon footprint by 30% by 2030. What are the 3 core areas the company should focus on towards sustainability goal? Option number 1, scientific, environmental, and economic. While science informs sustainability, it is not considered a core pillar and the social dimension is missing here, although environment is there. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 2, social, economic and environmental. These three pillars, often called the triple bottom line, from the foundation of sustainability. Social focuses on people and communities, economics ensures financial viability, and environmental addresses ecological impact. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the third option, social, economic and entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurial aspect can drive innovation, but it does not recognize as a sustainability pillar. Moreover, the company wants to reduce carbon footprint and environment is missing. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 4, social, entrepreneurial and environmental. Again, entrepreneurial is not a core sustainability pillar. That is why this is also not the correct option, and that makes option number 2 is the correct option for question 15. Now let's move to question number 16. An online retail giant wants to deploy a foundation model in Amazon Bedrock to generate personalized product description for its retail website and product catalog. Which prompt engineering technique will meet these requirements with least operational overhead? Now let's review one by one. Option number 1, fine-tune the foundation model to optimize the descriptions based on customer engagement metrics. Fine-tuning requires preparing label dataset, training and validation, which involves significant operational overhead. That is why this is not the correct option. Option number 2, use few short prompting with examples of well-written product descriptions. Few short prompting provides the model with several examples of high-quality product description, which will guide the model to generate output that matches the desired tone and style. So let's park it and review the remaining two options. Use zero shot prompting technique to generate the output. Zero shot prompting can produce generic or less contextually relevant content because the model has no examples to learn from the prompt. That is why this is not a correct option. And the last option, use continued pre-training to train the foundation model on a different domain. Continued pre-training is even more resource intensive than fine-tuning, and which will involve retraining the model on large domain specific dataset. That is why this is not least operational effort and not the correct option. Now let's review question number 17. An online educational company wants to build an interactive game-based application for young learners that generate new stories based on classic stories. The company wants to use Amazon Bedrock and needs to ensure that the result and topic should not contain hateful or racist content and are appropriate for minors. Which AWS service or feature will meet these requirements? Let's review the options. Option number 1, Amazon Guard Duty. Guard Duty is a threat detection service that monitors AWS accounts, workloads, and data for malicious or unauthorized activity. It does not moderate or filter model outputs. That is why Guard Duty is not the correct option. Option number 2, Amazon Bedrock Playground. Amazon Bedrock Playground is great for prototyping but do not provide enforceable safety policies for products and applications. That is why Playground is not the correct option. Option number 3, Amazon Bedrock Guardrail. Guardrail for Amazon Bedrock let you define safety policies to filter out harmful content such as hate, harassment, sexual content, or even violence, and that can be tailored for each appropriate output. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the last option. Agents for Amazon Bedrock. Agents will help orchestrate multi-step task and tool uses with LLM, and by default, agent will not provide any safety filtering or content filtering. That is why this is also not the correct option. Now let's review question number 18. An online retail giant wants to use a large language model to develop a conversational agent to enhance the customer service experience. The company recently faced a prompt template attack. The company wants to implement a solution to prevent the LLM from being manipulated with common prompt engineering techniques to perform undesirable actions or expose sensitive information. Which solution can organization implement to reduce this risk? Let's review the options. Option number 1, increase the temperature parameter on invocation request to the LLM. Temperature will control randomness in generated output. That is why this is not a correct option. Option number 2, avoid using LLM that are not listed in the Amazon SageMaker. While using a trusted model is a good practice, but it does not directly mitigate prompt template attack. That is why option number 2 is not correct. Option number 3, decrease the number of input tokens on invocation of the LLM. Limiting token count will reduce context length, but it will not prevent malicious instructions from being included in the prompt. That is why this is not relevant to the ask and it's not a correct option. Moving to our last option, create a prompt template that teaches the LLM to detect attack patterns. Implementing a secure prompt template which will include instructions for the LLM to identify and ignore malicious or manipulative inputs. This is the best practice and this is the correct option for this scenario. Let's move to question number 19. A medical research institute hosts and maintains a large archive of medical images of cancer diagnosis. The institute wants to automatically identify and categorize different stages of cancer in the photos without manual human effort. Which strategy meets these requirements? Let's review the options. Option number 1, object detection. Object detection is the most suitable strategy for identifying and categorizing different stages of cancer in medical image. It can locate and classify specific regions of interest within an image, and it will enable automatic diagnosis. Hence, this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the second option, which is anomaly detection. Anomaly detection is useful for spotting unusual patterns but does not provide detailed classification or stage identification. It would flag images as normal or abnormal. However, that is not going to solve our problem. That is why option number 2 is not correct. Let's move to option number 3, named entity recognition. Named entity recognition is a natural language processing technique for extracting entities from text, not analyzing images. That is why this is not the correct option. And the last option is inpainting. Inpainting is an image restoration technique which used to fill missing or corrupted parts of an image. That is why this is also not the correct option. Now let's move to question number 20. An online retail company wants to use a large language model to develop a conversational agent to enhance the customer service experience. However, the chatbot does not generate contextually aware responses. Enterprise architects recommend the organization to build a RAG solution to link the company knowledge sources with the chatbot. Which feature of Amazon open source service gives companies the ability to build vector database applications? Amazon OpenSearch is a vector database which is an essential component of a RAG solution, and this question is asking which feature of a vector database will give the company ability to build a vector database application. Let's review the options. Option number 1, integration with Amazon S3 for object storage. While S3 integration will help to store raw data or backup, but it does not provide vector search capabilities, which we need for the RAG implementation. Hence, this is not the correct option. Moving to question number 2, support for geospatial indexing and queries. Geospatial indexing is useful for location-based searches, but it is not for semantic similarities or embedding-based retrieval required for RAG. That is why this is also not the correct option. Moving to option number 3, scalable index management and nearest neighbor search capability. Amazon OpenSearch service supports vector search using k nearest neighbor or KNN algorithm. This is essential for building retrieval augmented generation or RAG solution. That is why this is the potential correct option. Let's park it and review the last option. Ability to perform real-time analysis on streaming data. Real-time analytics is great for monitoring and dashboard, but it does not enable vector capabilities or vector semantic search requirements. That is why option number 4 is also not the correct option. Let's move to question number 21. A publishing company built a retrieval augmented generation or RAG based solution to give its users the ability to interact with published content. New content is published daily. The company wants to provide a near real-time experience to users. Which steps in the RAG pipeline should the company implement by using offline batch processing to meet these requirements? And we have to choose two correct options. Let's start with option number 1, generation of content embedding. Embedding for published content can be generated in offline batch mode because the content changes daily, not per user query. So pre-computing embedding will ensure fast retrieval during the real-time interaction. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the remaining options. Option number 2, generation of embedding for user queries. User queries will be dynamic and must be processed in real time, and you cannot pre-compute embedding for user queries because that is not feasible. Hence, this is not the correct option. The third option, creation of search index. Building or updating the vector search index after generating embedding is also best practice and which is done in batch mode. This step will prepare the knowledge base for efficient retrieval without impacting real-time performance. Hence, this is also the potential correct option. Let's park it and let's move to option number 4, retrieval of relevant content. Retrieval depends on user's input or user's query and must happen in real time. You cannot pre-compute this. Hence, this is not correct. And the last option, response generation for the user. The LLM must generate response dynamically based on the query and it will retrieve the context. So this cannot be done offline or it cannot be pre-computed. That is why option number 5 is also not correct option. Let's move to question number 22. A company makes forecast each quarter to decide how to optimize operations to meet expected demand. The company uses machine learning models to make this forecast. The AI practitioner is writing a report about the trained ML models to provide transparency and explainability to company stakeholders. What should the AI practitioner include in the report to meet the transparency and explainability requirements? Let's review the options. Code for model training. Code transparency is useful for developers. It does not provide business stakeholders with the interpretable insights into how the model makes decisions because it will be too technical for the non-technical users. Hence, this is not the correct option. Option number 2, partial dependence plot or PDP. PDPs are a key explainability tool that shows how individual features influence the model's prediction. If you include PDP in the report, it will help the stakeholder understand the relationship between input variables and forecast outcome. That is why PDP is potentially correct option. Let's park it and let's move to our third option, Sample data for training. Showing sample data can illustrate what model was trained on, but it does not explain how features are affected by the predictions, and it's informative but not sufficient for explainability. That is why option 3 is not correct. And the last option, model convergence tables. Convergence tables will show optimization progress during the training, which is relevant for machine learning engineers, but it does not explain predictions to a non-technical stakeholders. That is why model convergence tables is also not the correct option. Let's move to question number 23. An online retailer receives thousands of customer support inquiries about products every day. The organization wants to use a large language model or LLM to deploy a conversational agent using Amazon Bedrock to enhance the customer service experience. What are the key benefits of Amazon Bedrock agent that could help this retailer? Let's review the options. Generation of custom foundation models to predict customer need. Amazon Bedrock agent orchestrate use of models and tools. They don't train or generate custom foundation models. That is why option number 1 is not correct. Let's review option number 2. Automation of repetitive tasks and orchestration of complex workflows. Amazon Bedrock agent are designed to plan multi-step tasks. It can call tools and APIs, retrieve knowledge, maintain state across transactions, and execute workflows end-to-end. For customer service chatbot, agent can automate repetitive tasks like order lookups, returns, or FAQ-based questions. That is why this is potentially correct option. Let's park it and review the remaining two. Option number 3, automatically calling multiple foundation models and consolidating the result. Amazon Bedrock agent can invoke models as part of a workflow, but they don't natively ensemble or aggregate the findings, and that is why this is not the correct option. Moving to option number 4, selecting the foundation model based on predefined criteria and metrics. Model evaluation or selection is a separate concern. Agent does not automatically route across models based on metrics as a built-in feature. You can implement your own routing logic, but Amazon Bedrock does not have this inbuilt capability. That is why option number 4 is incorrect. Now let's move to question number 24. A company uses a foundation model from Amazon Bedrock for an AI search tool. The company wants to fine-tune the model to be more accurate by using company's data, but the organization is confused between supervised learning or unsupervised learning. What characteristic distinguishes supervised learning from unsupervised learning in machine learning? This question is asking a pretty simple thing. What is the difference between supervised learning and unsupervised learning? Let's review the options. Supervised learning requires the algorithm to make decisions based on specific criteria. This is not true because this is vague and misleading. Because both supervised and unsupervised algorithms make decisions based on learned patterns, not a predefined criteria. Moving to option number 2, supervised learning uses a label dataset for training, while unsupervised learning does not. This is the fundamental distinction between a supervised and unsupervised learning, because supervised learning requires labeled data, while unsupervised requires unlabeled data. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the other options. Unsupervised learning is used exclusively for classification and regression platforms. Classification and regression are supervised learning tasks. Unsupervised learning has nothing to do with that. That is why it's not a correct option. Supervised learning algorithms calculate a cost for each decision made during the learning process, while supervised learning uses a loss function. This statement is incomplete and confusing because unsupervised learning also uses optimization objectives. Hence, this is also not the correct option. Moving to question number 25. An online retail company deployed a customer needs analysis model on Amazon Bedrock. To comply with the organization's privacy policy, the company wants to prevent the model from including customers' personal information in its responses. The company also wants to receive notifications when policy violation occurs. Which solution meets these requirements? Let's review the options. Use Amazon Messi to scan the model's output for sensitive data and set up alert for potential violation. Messi is designed for discovering and classifying sensitive data in Amazon S3. It cannot filter or monitor real-time LLM outputs. Hence, this is not a correct option. Moving to option number 2. Configure AWS CloudTrail to monitor the model's response and create alerts for any detected personal information. Amazon CloudTrail logs API calls for monitoring, not the actual content of model response. It cannot inspect or filter sensitive data in generated output. That is why this is also not the correct option. Option number 3. Use Guardrails for Amazon Bedrock to filter content. Set up Amazon CloudWatch alarms for notification of privacy violation. Guardrails for Amazon Bedrock allow you to define safety and compliance policies that filter out sensitive or disallowed content. This is the potential correct option. Let's park it and review the last option. Implement Amazon SageMaker model monitor to detect data drift and receive alerts when model quality degrades. Model monitor focuses on detecting data drift and quality issue in machine learning model. It cannot filter sensitive content or enforcing privacy policies in LLM response. That is why this is also not the correct option. Let's move to question number 26. An online educational company is using few short prompting on a base model that is hosted on Amazon Bedrock. The model currently uses 10 examples in the prompt. The model is invoked once a daily and is performing well. The company wants to lower the monthly cost. Which solution will meet this requirement? Before reviewing the option, let's review the invocation pattern. The model is invoked once a daily. Now let's review the options. Option number 1, customize the model by using fine-tuning. Fine-tuning will incur significant additional cost for training and storage. It does not reduce inference cost. That is why fine-tuning is not the potential correct option. Option number 2, decrease the number of tokens in the prompt. If you reduce the number of examples or shortening the prompt, it will lower the total token count, which will directly reduce the inference cost in Amazon Bedrock. Since the model is performing well, you can optimize the cost without retraining or changing throughput setting. That is why this is a potential correct option. Let's park it and review the remaining options. Option number 3, increase the number of tokens in the prompt. If you increase the number of tokens, it will make the prompt longer and it will be more expensive, which will do the exactly opposite thing to our question goal. That is why option number 3 is not correct. And let's review the last option, use provision throughput. While provision throughput will guarantee consistent performance for high volume workload, but for our use case, the model is invoked once a daily. That is why provision throughput will not be optimal solution for low frequency invocation models or low frequency invocation use cases. That is why this is not the correct option. Let's move to question number 27. An online retail company trained a custom model on Amazon Bedrock by using a training dataset that contains confidential data. The organization wants to ensure that the custom model does not generate inference response based on the confidential data. How should the AI practitioner prevent response based on confidential data. The model is already trained with a dataset which has personal data. Now we have to make sure the model is not generating output with those personal data, or maybe the model should not have those personal data. Now let's review the options. Option number 1, mask the confidential data in the inference response by using dynamic data masking. Dynamic data masking will be applied to output after generation. That will be reactive, not a proactive. That is why this is not a correct option. Moving to option number 2, encrypt the confidential data in the inference response by using Amazon SageMaker. Encrypting the response does not stop the model from generating sensitive content. Again, that is reactive, not a proactive approach, and the core issue of data leakage will remain with this option. That is why this is not the correct option. Moving to option number 3, encrypt the confidential data in the custom model by using AWS KMS or AWS Key Management Service. Encrypting the model will protect it from unauthorized access, but it does not prevent the model from generating sensitive output or sensitive information. Hence, this is also not the correct option. And the last option, delete the custom model, remove the confidential data from the training dataset, and retain the custom model. Although this option sounds very crude, however, if confidential data was included in the training set, the model may have memorized and could expose it during inference. The only reliable way to prevent this is to remove the sensitive data from the training dataset and retrain the model. That is why this is the correct option. Moving to question number 28. An online retail company wants to predict customer demand for upcoming holiday period. The company does not have coding experience or knowledge of machine learning algorithm and needs to develop a data-driven predictive model. The company needs to perform analysis on internal data and external data. Which solution will meet these requirements? Let's review the options. Store the data in Amazon S3, create ML model and demand forecasting predictions by using Amazon SageMaker built-in algorithm that uses the data from Amazon S3. Using SageMaker built-in algorithms like XGBoost or DeepAir, it will typically require coding with Python SDK or Studio Notebook and data pre-processing and machine learning implementation pre-experience. This solution does not align with the company's requirement of no coding experience. Moving to option number 2, import the data from Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler, create machine learning model and demand forecast prediction by using SageMaker built-in algorithm. Data Wrangler is primarily a data preparation and feature engineering tool. While it can export to training job, but building models with built-in algorithm will still need machine learning expertise, which the company does not have. Moving to option number 3, import the data into Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler, build ML model and demand forecast prediction by using Amazon Personalized Trending Now recipe. Amazon Personalize is a personalized recommendation tool, not for demand forecasting. That is why this is also not the correct option. Moving to our last option, import the data into Amazon SageMaker Canvas, build machine learning model and demand forecasting predictions by selecting the value in the data from SageMaker Canvas. Amazon SageMaker Canvas is a no-code visual interface that let business users build predictive model using AutoML, including time series demand forecasting without writing a single line of code. That is why this is the correct option for this question. Let's move to question number 29. A medical research institute built a deep learning model for object detection and deployed the model to production. Which AI process occurs when the model analyzes a new image to identify object? Let's review the options. Training. Training occurs before deployment, where the model learns patterns from label data. It's not involved when analyzing new images in prediction. That is why training is not the correct option. Moving to second option, inference. Inference is the process where a trained model is used to make prediction or analyze new data. This seems the potential correct option. Let's park it and review the remaining options. Option number 3, model deployment. Model deployment is the step of making the model available for use or hosting on endpoints. That means when you are deploying the model to production, that's called model deployment. Hence, this is also not the correct option. And the last option, bias correction. Bias correction is a model improvement step typically during training or evaluation. That is why this is also not the correct option. Let's move to our last question, question number 30. A company needs to build its own large language model based on only the company's private data. The company is concerned about the environmental effect of the training process. Which Amazon EC2 instance type has the least environmental effect when training large language models? Let's review the options. Option number 1, Amazon EC2 C series. C series instances are optimized for compute intensive workloads using CPUs. That is not for large scale deep learning training. That is why this is not the correct option. Amazon EC2 G series. G series instances are designed for graphic and inference workload, that is not for training a large language model or not for training use cases. That is why G series is also not the correct option. Option number 3, Amazon EC2 P series. P series instances use NVIDIA GPU for machine learning training. These are powerful but consume significantly more energy compared to Amazon Trainium based or TRN series EC2 instances. Since we have option number 4, Amazon EC2 TRN series, let's mark option number 3 as incorrect. The TRN series or Trainium series instances are purpose built for training large language model efficiently, which delivers high performance per watt, and it will reduce energy consumption compared to Amazon EC2 P series or NVIDIA based GPU based instances. That is why Amazon EC2 TRN series is the correct option for question number 30. Please stay tuned and explore other modules from the bootcamp playlist for a comprehensive understanding of the topics required for the certification. That wraps up this module. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more update, and feel free to drop any question or feedback in the comments. We would love to hear from you. I hope this session helped you gain a deeper understanding and brought you one step closer to your learning goals. Thank you very much for watching and learning with us at Cloud Expert Solution. See you in the next module.